We're back after a long break. Here, we are gonna go over some American news stories related to women and girls. Uh, some of them are more in the realm of general GC topics, and some of them will be, more generally on women's rights. So, who wants to start? Should I? Should you, Naya?
You can start.
Okay. So I am gotta find the window. Should we start out with the 80-year-old woman story or the
Heck
prison?
yeah, go Granny
Okay.
go.
All right. Here we go. Okay. So this story uh, is about an 80-year. This is from the post millennial. I think it was written by. Oh, it's written by Hannah Nightingale. I don't know, but Libby Emmons from Post Millennial was on the Hill, and she was, bringing up men and women's prisons and stuff. But so this story is about an 80-year-old granny banned from YMCA after demanding biological male leave women's locker room where little girls were undressing. The Port Townsend, Washington police said she had an emotional response to a strange male being in the bathroom and helping a young girl take off her bathing suit. I
You
mean, it's
think?
like, I know, but also like the whole emotional response thing, like the idea that women are these emotional creatures, like as if a man wouldn't shouldn't also have an emotional response to a strange male
Have
doing.
you seen the video? It's floating around on Twitter of her speaking at the local like city council meeting or something.
The
Oh, I
granny.
haven't.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh no, you have to watch that. She
that was
is
fantastic.
amazing. She was prepared, had what to say. She, explained from her perspective what had happened, um, without, a hint of um, bigotry or, or untoward feeling toward people with different gender identities. She just explained, I was in a stall and I heard a man's voice. And when I came out, I saw a man in a lady's swimming suit and he was watching little girls take their swimming suits off to use the restroom.
Yeah. Spoiler
And
alert.
yeah,
Yeah, that's in the
so
story.
so she said she asked him to leave, which, obviously, and from there, then she was uh
Right. I'll
disciplined.
I'll pick up from there because you basically went over the first paragraph here. Um, but that would be good. We should pull up that video or maybe repost it or something.
Yeah.
Um, the Naya, I don't know if you want to try to search for it as the
Um,
biological male was reportedly with girls from the day camp, overseeing their bathroom activities. Um, Addressing the Port Townsend City Council on Monday, Julie Jaman, I don't know how to say her last name, a resident of Port Townsend of about 40 years, described the situation she had been in after her regular swim at the Mountain Valley pool. In an effort by the city and the YMCA to apply the neocultural gender rules at Mountain View pool dressing, shower room facilities, women and children are being put at risk, Jaman said. Jaman said that she had been showering after her July 26th swim in the pool when she heard a man's voice in the women's dressing area. She said that she saw a man in a women's swimsuit watching little girls pull down their bathing suits in order to use the toilets in the dressing room. In an email from the YMCA's marketing and communications manager to the Post Millennial, they said that the staff member was not "quote unquote" engaging with these girls, but rather escorting them to the dressing room.
Well, and see, that's where it gets worse. Why is this person a staff member at the YMCA to escort little girls into the restroom?
Yeah, it's
The fact that he want or she, whatever, call him whatever. It's a male born person. The fact that there's a male born person who wants to be escorting little girls into the bathroom should be a red flag, period. Doesn't matter what
Yeah.
gender they are.
100%. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I put this is the exact scenario that I had pointed out to my mom in the piquing her conversation, where I was like, "How would you feel if you were showering?" Because she swims at the Y. She's 10 years younger than this woman, and yeah, I was like, "How would you feel if?" Because she was doing the like, "Oh, just why can't you just be nice? Why can't you just be accepting?" thing, and I was like, "How would you feel if you got out of the shower and there was a man in there? Like how would you feel? Would you respect their gender identity, or would you be upset by that?" She was like, "I'd be upset by that." So I mean, this is not. And then another example is my grandmother was still alive at the time. Another example I gave her was a scenario with my grandmother who had to have staff help her bathe and go to the bathroom every day. And I was like, how would you feel if a man was giving her that care and they said that they were a woman? How would she feel about that? She's like, that would be wildly unacceptable. So, it's when people are actually dealing with these situations in their personal lives, it's outside of the realm of theory, and it doesn't quite, you know, whatever somebody
Yeah.
else identifies as doesn't change your comfort level with them being
So
in
does
your
anybody
space.
happen to know? I mean, I guess I could Google it, but how far is Port, whatever it is, Port Townsend? How far is that from Seattle?
I don't know. But I do want to second that about the personal experience. I mean, I feel like that's very like broadly been my experience of like even just personally, like one of my first encounters with, I guess, trans activism had to do with like a bathhouse with a female side to it. And at that point, I was very much in the kind of like social justice sort of, the camp, maybe like the more the traditional kind of woke camp of it. And when that was introduced, like, oh, we should expand the bathhouse to be available to trans women, I was really thrown through a loop because my my idea of myself and what I stood for was saying, of course, like this is the thing to do. I didn't know that much about it, but it's sort of like you just get this prescription that this is the thing to do and to support. But then at the same time, like just very instinctively, I was like, I don't want any dudes in there. Like I don't want any dicks flopping around in the naked bathhouse. So yeah, it's
Well,
kind
so
of, yeah, yeah.
the reason I asked where it is, and I looked, and it's basically right outside Seattle. Um, I have a really good friend who lives in Seattle, and he's very, oh, I'm in a blue state now. Um, but he was giving me crap several weeks ago about, why are you so worried about this gender stuff? And I said, are you kidding me? I mean, firstly, I'm a feminist. Secondly, I have little girls. I have young daughters, 6 and 8. And, I want to feel safe with them going to the bathroom. And he's like, "Oh yeah, because there's just trannies everywhere and scary trannies, and why are you worried about this? I'm sure there's men in the restroom and uh like, yeah, this is really happening where you are." And I was like, it's happening everywhere, and we're supposed to not be uncomfortable with this. I mean, I think that people just don't realize how much and how often it's happening. And you say that, and people go, "No, or, you got the story wrong, or you don't understand, or you didn't know the facts, or whatever." And you look into the facts, and you find out, that this granny is very nice and
Yeah.
very sort of aware of gender identity, and definitely was not trying to infringe on someone's rights, was just trying to protect kids. Or you look at the Wii Spa situation, and you got woke bro there going, But is it a female penis?
Right.
No, it's not. But furthermore, the We Spy guy has been charged now with indecent exposure, and he is a serial offender. So,
Yeah, it's just like
I
giving
want
him.
trans women to be safe and comfortable and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to give up women and children's safety to do that.
Right, and I mean, like there is this kind of like instinctive protection that I've seen women kick into when it's people exposing themselves to little girls, because we've pretty much all been that little girl who was exposed to
Oh,
stuff.
absolutely.
And then on top of that, I think there's also like an evolutionary protection of it, because women's interests are aligned in that regard. And if you're living in a society where people can just violate that, then the female lineage is at risk of, like birth too young and horrible conditions to raise children in, etc. And so I feel like you see this across societies, even in places where conditions are pretty bad for women, like Afghanistan or something. um, and a lot of places where they actually practice sex selective abortions away from like girls, or if you practice female infanticide, a lot of times motivation is like they have no other option to try to make life better for the girls that they're having, and so they, like out of desperation, don't want them to have the life that they're living. So it's like, which version of this do we want to be living in? Do we want to be letting women protect girls, or do we want them to be like so depressed about being a girl or having girls that they try to not have them, or try to turn them into boys or something like that? um but to continue on with this, so she goes into full, like protective mama bear lioness type of mode. So according to Port Townsend Free Press, John, who had been in the shower when she realized what was happening, hidden behind thin sheer shower curtains, asked this person, revealed to go by the name Clementine Adams. Who names himself Clementine? I don't know, I'm sorry, like that's a weird name to choose. Do you have a penis? None of your business, Adams reportedly responded. Get out of here right now, Jamin replied. And I want to point out here, like, imagine that being reported as like a man is in the women's restroom and a woman says, like, do you have a penis? And the man says, none of your business. Like, that's, it does matter. Like, it does matter if you're in a girl's restroom with your penis. Like, that is one of the most important things in human society to be aware of. Um, so, oh, is it frozen? Oh, you
Oh,
guys are
sorry.
there.
I was muted. I like that she didn't have to actually inspect his genitals to identify that it was a male voice that she was hearing. And
Oh, I know. Oh, it's
I mean,
crazy how.
if anything, you know, before all of this gender nonsense, you wouldn't have asked a man in a women's restroom, "Do you have a penis?" I mean, I think
Right.
to me that was. I mean, I'm seeing you as a man. Are you really a man? And
Right.
he's saying, uh, none of your business, which, that's the thing that we have problems with. That's the self ID thing that, you know, when it was, and I'm not saying that this is the answer, but when it was a tiny, tiny, minuscule number of men who were having, um, you know, reassignment surgeries, um, I think women, were mostly not bothered by that. But
Yeah.
when it's now men who are going, well, I'm a woman, but I have a penis and I'm keeping my penis. And if you don't like it, suck my girl dick. That's just a whole other basket of worms. And at this point, um, any man with no identity can just walk into the ladies' room and what are you supposed to do?
I mean, it's purely. There's definitely been this predatory backing to the whole thing. I now see because I remember that time when it was just kind of like nobody cared because it truly was the only people using the space were genuine transsexuals who went through the extensive process of, complying with the requirements to be considered a transsexual, which was a ton of counseling, genital, surgery, etc. And they were just kind of living this low profile life and nobody cared. I remember that era. And then now the whole push behind self ID is transparently abusive, it's transparently predatory because self ID says it throws out the authentic condition and it says we get to do whatever we want.
Well,
um,
that's just it. Then I've said this before. Do we need to have laws that say you can't use the ladies' bathroom? Well, did we have laws before? No, we never needed the law that says you can't use the women's bathroom if you're not a woman. What we did have was social mores, which this woman is a perfect example of. You knew if you were a man, if you walked into the ladies' room, you knew that somebody was going to scream at you.
right.
And the thing is that punishing her now, you know,
Well, so let me get into
you
that.
could have said, well,
Wait, let
she
me
she
let me
didn't
get in.
understand or what have you, but punishing her helps to erase our social mores.
Hey, let me get into that because the viewer might not know about this yet. So let me go through the article and then we can just discuss the full story that ended up happening. So it went on. This is what her instead of the YMCA being like, "Oh my god, I can't believe we allowed that to happen. We'll fix this immediately. I can't believe we exposed girls potentially to abuse. Thank you so much for reporting that to us." Which is what would happen under normal conditions, under healthy society
Or
conditions.
even saying, "Oh, we understand, you're 80 years old and you didn't know that this is a transgender or whatever." There was also no genuine um consideration uh for her side at all. Go
Right.
on, Mel.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I think literally 10 years ago, the response would have been, "Oh, I'm so, like, this is horrifying." Well, immediately, well, like, I grew up in and around YMCA camps and pools and stuff like that. And it would just be, like, that's the side that it would be on. It's just like there was, you know, my mom worked at a YMCA summer camp in the, in the summers, and there was a boys' camp and a girls' camp, and there were strict rules around like when the counselors could see each other, when the boys and girls camps met up, and stuff like that. And as a staff kid, I was one of the only girls who really got to see the boys' camp because my mother was a nurse there. So it's like this is, that, and then vice versa. I don't think any boys ever, when we had joint events, the girls went to the boys' camp. I don't think the boys were. Oh, the horse facilities, the horseback riding facilities were at the girls' camp, and so boys could go to the horseback riding facilities, but they weren't allowed on our side of the lake or anything like that. Um, so yeah, I know a time when the YMCA would have responded with just utter apologies for that happening. So this is what happened. Instead of that, the manager said, "You're discriminating and you can't use the pool anymore, and I'm calling the police." Calling the police. YMCA Aquatics manager Rowan DeLuna told Jamin after she requested that Adams leave the room, according to Port Townsend Free Press. In an email from the YMCA's marketing communications manager, they said that Jamin was not permanently suspended for this incident alone, but rather due to, quote unquote, repeatedly violating the Olympic Peninsula YMCA Code of Conduct, specifically using disrespectful words or gestures towards YMCA staff or others, and abusive, harassing, and or obscene language or gestures towards YMCA staff or others. An 80-year-old woman defending girl, like, I'm sorry, but like this,
Well, the disrespectful words were probably, "Do you have a penis?"
Right, but I'm saying the cap, like putting on our before times cap. This is insane. You don't like.
Well,
There's
no,
no way that.
100%.
Yeah, it doesn't fit. The manager said the facility and calling the police on her for what? In the US, we don't
Mhm.
actually have hate crime non-incidents or whatever. We have like there's
We have
nothing
free
illegal.
speech, yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing illegal that she did. And I've personally experienced this and I've seen it happen with a lot of other women where people will weaponize the state against you. They'll call the police on you to try to keep you in line. And
Mhm.
it's crazy. It's crazy because you haven't broken any laws, and they just know that the police showing up would be like a male presence that intimidates you most of the time. The manager said the facility has experienced past issues, but that the incident in the changing room was unforgivable and extremely harmful to the girls. To the girls, they should be apologizing for that. As Jamin attempted to leave the building, DeLuna reportedly told Jamin that she was not abiding by the YMCA principles and values. That was the manager, DeLuna.
Mhm.
Another YMCA staffer reportedly blocked Jamin from leaving, to which Jamin said, "Bullshit, I'm going to the police right now. I want help and I need it immediately." Um, which is like they were basically, it sounds like they were trying to detain her for
Yeah.
the police to show up. And then she said, "I'm going to the police. I want help and need it
Well,
immediately."
what are the circumstances where you're allowed to detain an 80-year-old woman for saying something that you don't like? And it's unforgivable and harmful. Help me understand what harm this male-bodied person experienced from being told to get out of the ladies' restroom. What was the
Right.
harm to him? Hurt his feelings?
Yeah.
Really?
And also no concern or empathy for the little girls. Like
At
how did the
all.
little girls feel?
No
Um,
consideration at all for
right.
the little girls.
Which is proof to me, like you see women responding this way to defend little girls. You don't see men doing it in quite the same way. And so one of the biggest signs that this was a man is that they didn't care that they were upsetting little girls. I've never seen that. I don't care if I'm upsetting some little girl. Like I don't know women who do that. Jamin went next door to the police and later received a call back from Port Townsend police officer Mark Titterness, great name. In a police call report obtained by the Port Townsend Free Press, Titterness said that Jamin had an emotional response to a strange male being in the bathroom and helping a young girl to take off her bathing suit. Of course, this call report.
It's just on his face. It just sound like it just is so depraved. It's just like, of
She had
course
an
it should be okay. This
emotional
isn't okay with you.
response.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah, she had such an emotional. It's like it feels like extremely coercive. Like, I mean, I just like thinking back to that time that I did, had that whole thing with the bathhouse and the advocacy and whatever. Just thinking that, like, imagining that it actually had happened, because what happened was that there were some women who were basically like no, this isn't happening. And then even like and they were like the older women mostly, so like the younger contingent of women who were kind of like social justice, like like we were pretty, like, these other women just stepped in and were like, nah. And so it didn't happen, but it just like kind of imagining a hypothetical where it did happen, and hey, it could still have happened. I don't know. I mean, I haven't followed up in years, but yeah, imagining that had happened and that the tables had turned and basically women were told like, you better shut up, and like like you
It's
have
just like the
no.
Leah
It's
Thomas
just it's
thing.
unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It's unbelievable. It goes on. I'm going to try to finish this up pretty quickly so we can move on to other. We have so much stuff to talk about. But so this call report also contained call records made by an anonymous person from the YMCA who told police that Clementine was in the bathroom with a child in the day camp, and Julie asked if she had a penis and started screaming at her to get out. Sounds pretty fair. In another call, this person said that Jamin had been asked to leave and is refusing. Sounds kind of like the manager. Anyway, yet another call said that Jamin was screaming at an employee and calling names and refusing to leave. Jamin had also spoke with Wendy Bart. By the way, that's also called defending basic principles, defending little girls, standing up for yourself, standing up for other people. It's not, if a man were doing that, it wouldn't even be commented on. Um,
I mean, I feel like another thing with that is that when you are so much in one camp of belief, like if you are totally bought in to this whole thing, like I mean, I feel like people do have this like enculturated instinctual response to basically discredit women, especially older women. So like if you've been like brainwashed, or you've been basically indoctrinated, brainwash might be a little strong, but you've been basically indoctrinated into this belief system, and then you see a woman kind of spouting off, like it's like I feel like it's so, I mean it's just like it shouldn't be a surprise at all that people are essentially just like being like, oh wow, she's crazy, you know, because people totally do that. It's very present,
And
and
we
it's
the
yeah.
whole reason why we probably have people survive past their fertile years is probably because of like the wisdom of older women and potentially older men. And now we treat older women used to be revered and respected, and now yeah, like the fact that she is older is seen as a detriment and not a benefit, which is bad for our species, I believe. So John had also spoke with Wendy Bart, the CEO of the Olympic Peninsula YMCA, who stood by the action of her employees. Bad choice. Bart said that a staff member claimed John said to Adams, "You're going to stick your fucking penis in those little girls." That actually, I have to say, that sounds like a fantasy. It sounds like the employee was Clementine. Like that to me, that's my instinct. My instinct says that report came
Yeah, that
from.
doesn't sound like it came from an 80-year-old woman. It just doesn't. But my question is, what is the point at which you say stop? Let's say that this is a transgender woman. Let's say that I believe that men are born in the wrong bodies, and this is really a woman and whatever. At what point do I get to say stop? I mean, does he have to insert it a little bit? I mean, if he's touching them, does he have to
Right.
finger them first? What point do I get to stop this child from being sexually abused?
Right, and as if exposure to that isn't already making their little, like
Well,
little kids
right,
can sense that.
exactly. It is threatening to them because it says these types of male-bodied persons that you can identify visually and by sound, these types are supposed to be treated as not a threat. When the fact is that there's no data that indicates that gender identity is any kind of determinant of a male-born person being less of a threat than any other.
Yeah.
So it's not good for, you know, little girls especially instinctively have some hesitation about adult males.
Hmm.
And for good reason.
Right. So wrapping this up, according to the Substack, The Distance, Jamin denied ever saying this, noting, "I'm an 80-year-old woman and I do not talk like that. There is no signage informing women the shower room is now all gender and what that means, nor have parents been informed of what they can expect with these new policies," Jamin told the city council. Excellent point. Excellent point. It's been done under the radar. Per Washington state law, all covered entities shall allow individuals the use of gender segregated facilities such as why gender segregated, such as restrooms, locker rooms, dressing rooms, and homeless or emergency shelters that are consistent with that individual's gender expression or identity. No protections in there for, you know, females, but whatever. The Y has not provided any dressing shower room options for women who do not want to be exposed to men who identify as women, Jamin said.
Hey,
Excellent
good
point.
point.
I know. The YMCA manager, like, just make it an option. Just make it an option. The YMCA manager told the Post Millennial, and by the way, this whole thing is a standalone question. Can we just point that out? Um,
Hmm.
the YMCA manager told the Post Millennial, though, that within the changing rooms, there are private stalls that close and lock for individuals that would like additional privacy within the changing rooms. Jamin continued, the staff seems to have received little professional training on how to handle reactions to such a radical cultural change, particularly for the most vulnerable, older female patrons and children who may be exposed to inappropriate behavior. The dignity and safety of unsuspecting women who have trusted to use these facilities for many years. This is not right. Um, yeah, I
Yeah,
just,
that's an excellent point on her part. This is, the way that they state these policies as, well, gender segregated and gender identity sounds like it's no big change. The reality is that you've just made all of your facilities
single
not
sex.
sex, yeah,
Yeah.
and any sex, all sex, no sex, whatever sex. You no
Mixed sex.
longer have sex segregated facilities. Have you changed any of your signage?
Right.
Or does it still say women?
Well, this sounds like it's a state law, like the state law
It is a
changed.
state law.
Right.
Yeah,
And so, but
but
people
that
didn't really,
created a huge cultural change. And instead of addressing that, or instead of coming out and saying, this is why we're doing this, and this is what we're doing, and this is how we're doing it, the way it's been
yeah.
handled is just completely under the radar because people know that the response would be, are you kidding me?
Right.
I mean, can you imagine if like especially like instead of this all gender, like instead of all of this whatever, if they literally just changed all of the sex specific things to just be like
Well, they might as
bathroom, dressing
well.
room,
Yeah, no, I mean, why
bathhouse,
don't
and
they
then like
do
people
that?
are like, what the
That's the
fuck?
reality. That's what you're
Right.
saying you want now. So why don't we take off all the signs
Right.
and say men
Yeah.
or women or
Because that
whatever?
like
Because
that
it gives you a
would
I,
false sense of security, doesn't it? If you think it's kind of women,
it
Right.
totally
unless
does.
someone walks in,
Yeah.
every other day. So you just on tenterhooks all the time. Is this the day that a man's going to walk in? You
Right.
may as
Well,
well just be honest, and then everybody will go into the toilets, the literal cubicles to escape or
right.
to
Well,
get changed.
the thing
well,
is
and
too,
then you.
the thing
Sorry, go
is
ahead,
too
Mel.
though that they're not like people aren't, the laws are changing before people realize that's the consequence. And then when the consequence emerges, like in this situation, the people are being punished and ridiculed and treated poorly because they're not complying with the law. But it's like most people didn't know what they were agreeing to in reality when they agreed to this change or let it slide. Like most people are not that politically engaged. In response to her banning, Jamin and supporters have taken to protesting outside of the pool, arguing that the YMCA has promised the addition of all gender bathrooms, but that instead took over the traditional binary areas. The following day, on which is the point you were just making, the following day on August 2nd, the YMCA manager told the Post Millennial, this is probably read it. This is not edited. The following day on August 2nd, the YMCA manager told the Post Millennial that around 60 people had congregated outside the facility, but a large portion of this group came out in support of the facility's actions. The Y, large is not a quantity. The Y will uphold and respect this law in regards to YMCA staff, members, and program participants that use Mountain View Pool at the Y. Our goal is to provide an atmosphere free from discrimination, hatred, derogatory or unwelcome comments, intimidation, or actions based on an individual's sex, age, race, ethnicity, religion, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression, or any other legally protected status, a press release from the Y states.
Okay, so explain to me how this 80-year-old woman was not intimidated on the basis of her sex and her age.
Right. Or her, you know, like the little girls, like like the little girls are the ones who I'm most concerned about. She was defending the little girls, like she bravely was like
Well,
not
and
even.
what are she makes a good point though. Do the parents of these little girls know that this person is on staff there and helping them? I mean,
I mean,
if this young woman
I have.
wants to have sex reassignment surgery, just go ahead and help one of my girls with their bathing suit because I'll give you one for free. I'm not
I,
joking.
so I actually have friends. I have friends from the Seattle area, and they have two young girls. And I started posting, gender critical stuff a few years ago, and they were, you know, the mother appeared on, one of my posts, and she was saying, "Oh, when my little girls see somebody in the restroom who they think is a man, I just explain to them that some women have a penis." I was like, and my sister liked that comment. This started a massive rift in our family, even though I've since convinced everybody that consequences have not gone away. But I, I told her, it's like I will protect my nieces on this front. My sister liking that comment was like a hard line for me, and I told her, you tell my nieces that I will like I will not I will make it explicitly clear that I consider that to be child abuse. And I told my friend, I was like, they're not my nieces, but I think that's a terrible thing to do. I don't think it's good to confuse little girls about what a man
No.
is and what a woman
Mm-mm.
is, to tell them that some women have a penis, to be with them in that space and to just let them be exposed to that. And I really, I am concerned about the little girls. Like it really bothers me that they're growing up into this. They're growing up into that confusion that is literally priming them. There's been a lot of controversy over the word grooming lately, because everybody's like, "Oh, it's not grooming," but they're doing it, they're saying that because they think grooming is only sexual, etc. But the thing is that it is grooming, sexual grooming, to convince little girls that they should not be
Uh-huh.
alarmed
Uh-huh.
that a man is in their private spaces seeing them undress. A strange man is in there. Like, that's
But
grooming.
but the thing that groomers know is I might not be grooming this kid for me. I might not ever have the chance to violate this child, but if I can groom them, I'm setting them up for somebody else.
Yeah, I don't think
And
they
they
discriminate.
say as much. They say
Yeah,
as much.
I don't think that I think there's a lot of aligned interests that happen in the world where people people get into behavioral modes and belief systems because it aligns with their interests, and they don't need to tamp down on it because they're already okay with any consequence from their belief system. Like, if your belief system is I can have access to little girls, you don't care if you specifically get access to that little girl. You don't care if anything you're not trying to save her for yourself. You're just fine with anybody getting her. Like, you're not trying to protect the little girl. You're just looking out for your own interests. So you don't need to get every single one of them to get what you want. So this is
And I just want to say that even if like let's just like, despite that like very obviously like very wrong like quote that said they attributed to that the 80-year-old grandma, that just like in no way was actually what she said. Like, just like imagining that this guy had like was just totally innocent and like would never do anything, and he was literally just helping, like just even imagining that, it's like, like it's just it is like a wider cultural, it's the wider cultural implications of it, and it's the fact that, okay, so yeah, like maybe there's gonna be like a few of these men who are totally fine, and like maybe that particular situation was totally fine.
And that's an excellent point. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't
Maybe
know.
Clementine is wonderful and was being nothing but helpful. I don't want to cast aspersions on Clementine. I don't know Clementine. What I do know is that when you set up a situation where men are able to access little girls in private spaces, and you tell 80-year-old women that they are in the wrong for suggesting that that's not a safe practice, you are setting up little girls for sex abuse, period.
Yeah.
right. What were you going to say, Naya?
I mean, I was basically gonna, yeah, say that like, in the best possible light of the situation, if that's actually the case. I mean, it's just the whole like, I mean, reading some of these other like, I was reading some of these like Redux articles as I was looking for another article that we were going to discuss. I just was like passing by all of these, like so many men. Like there's this one man who raped and he did some very abhorrent things to these two 9-year-old girls. He like kidnapped them and he raped them and he did some other things, and then he went to prison. And then when he went to prison, he basically like tortured and humiliated his developmentally disabled male cellmate. And now he's like on the board of like trans women in prison, like, and no one talks about what he was in for, like, and like what he did to both. It was just like so fucked up. And now I think he's even in a women's facility. I mean, it's just like the fact that people act like this is totally ridiculous, and it's like, that's not gonna happen. It's just like it's totally obscene. I mean, I feel like at the very minimum, if we're gonna abandon all logic and like accept this, like, oh, men can be women, like, I think the lowest bar for entry should be 0 violent history, 0 like totally mentally healthy, no violence against women, no violence against girls. And like it's just like no one no one gives a shit. And the second that you say, oh, I'm a woman, it's like, oh, you're a victim, you're such a victim, and like, oh, we have to protect you. And it's like literally using like women and girls as like human shields. And in that case, even a man, like, it's very disturbing.
Yeah, I got a lot of flack in feminist spaces online a while ago for pointing this out, but I stand by it. And I think it's that, like, theoretically speaking, just in terms of staking out our territory, women should be the ones defining which men could hypothetically be included in our spaces. I remember when that used to be gay men. Flamboyantly gay men were welcome in women's like reading groups and whatever, like females like hen night type of things. And that was they were still considered men, but they had the kind of like non-oppressive presence, not oppressive like socially, but oppressive like they weren't expecting things from women. They weren't demanding from them. They weren't trying to hit on them, whatever. And so women were like, yes, we're fine with that in our spaces. And so it's like, I think that women should have control over if you are saying, it doesn't mean that I believe that they should be allowed in our spaces, but I think that we should stake out the right, kind of like the right of first, the right of rejection or something like that, when you're like making a contract or something, like the right of first response or something like that. I forget what it's called. Somebody out there knows. But basically it's like, we're the one, if society is on board with putting some men in women's prisons, let's say, or women's restrooms or whatever, then yes, the standards for that should be standards that we have for other women. Like other women don't show their penises to us. They don't have penises. Other women, care what happens to little girls. They never hurt other girls, like little girls or other, for the most part, they don't hurt little girls or other women. Obvious exceptions, but these are the standards that we should say, like if we're going to do this, we want to be the ones to set the standards, and the standards should be these things that would exclude a whole bunch.
And instead we're being told that there can be no standards.
The problem is that some women actually agree. They're falling over backwards to allow any man into the spaces. So
yeah, but yeah, I think they do that because of this kind of like female socialization to not. I mean, I'm aware of and somewhat integrated into a bunch of other ways of thinking about the world, cultures and stuff like that, where women don't easily see that kind of, like they don't take it as a foregone conclusion that men should just get whatever they want. And that's the spirit in which I make this suggestion that if society is really dedicated to this project of allowing some men into women's spaces, we're the ones who get to say, we're the ones who get to decide if it's going to happen. We're the ones who get to say, this guy is okay, this guy is not okay. If men don't like that, tough tiddlywinks, they can, like they already do say which women are allowed in their spaces and which not, which aren't. Like they've been doing that.
Yeah,
It's
I pulled up a quote that I wanted to read related to that. So this is from Feminist Current. So Fey Blaney is an Indigenous, like First Nations woman, I believe in Canada, who's spoken out against, I'm not sure what tribe she's in. Anyway, I should know that. But I think maybe Anishinaabe. Anyway, but what she says here is that what I want to say about this particular issue is that we were very accepting in our communities. If Ted wanted to dress as a woman and if Ted wanted Jack to be her husband, we didn't condemn them. We knew that Ted wanted to dress like a woman, but we never said that Ted was a woman. The construction of gendered categories, like saying we had 5. I'm sorry, we did not. We had 2. There were some people who wanted to dress as men and some that wanted to dress as women, and we never discriminated against them. They were accepted. They were members of the community. They were different, and we were fine with that. But we didn't get Ted forcing himself into women's circles, He was invited. You never force yourself anywhere in Indigenous society. And she goes on to say that basically, like, as far as this idea of women choosing who to admit, she's saying that, like, in a women's shelter, because there was this whole thing about women's shelters in Canada a few years ago, being forced to admit men, that basically, like, if there was even one woman in the shelter who was uncomfortable with it, he would be out. Like, it's not even, you can't even be like, oh, well, this X number of women say it's fine, so it's fine. Women have given the approval. Like, it's the opposite. It's like, if any women are not fine with it, it's not okay. Yeah. So
that's a good quote.
Well, and I just had a interaction. I think it was probably on a response to this YMCA granny. There was a trans-identified male who said, well, it used to be that some of us were accepted, and now because of all of these, TRAs and all the gender cult, then now none of us are, and we're all seen as guilty and whatever. The thing that I thought was funny was he wasn't even mad. He was saying it's the fault of the TRAs, but he wanted women to be the ones to do something about that. And I was like, okay, well, so step 1, talk it over with your mates, bro, because, if they're causing this problem for you, maybe they're the ones that should do something about it and step off. Secondly, if you're thinking that you're entitled to be in women's spaces and you're entitled to tell women what they can and cannot say yes to, you sound like a man. That does not sound like a trans woman to me. That just sounds like a regular man in a dress, hun.
Right, and that's that's exactly my point. Like there's somebody I follow on Twitter called Sophie XY, and there's other.
Oh yeah, I love Sophie.
Yeah, and it's like, and there's some other people on YouTube whose videos I've watched and stuff, and they're trans women who they won't even call themselves trans women because they admit that they're male, and they're so deferential to, like, they give me actual woman vibes because they won't call themselves trans women. You know what I mean? Like, I would not think twice about this if somebody had like an online presence with that demeanor. I would not think you're a man. Like, I can spot men really well online because they argue with me. Like,
I'll be honest with you. I forget that Sophie is male. I mean, I know that, but when I'm talking to her online, because you're right.
which is my point. And to the extent we can have a whole episode on this at some point about like this idea of true trans, which is something that Naya and I have talked about a lot on our own. And to the extent that there could be like reversals in the development of the brain versus the body in terms of just like the typical features of male behavior versus typical features of female behavior, to the extent that that type, and we say true trans, but it's not, we're not saying like actual biological whatever. It's just like to the extent that people don't align in their sex type in every regard, to the extent that that could happen, there is the possibility of these people being socially accepted. And it's ironic that the very people, like it's this kind of self-selection mechanism where the people who would be most comfortable in those spaces are the only ones selecting out, because they are actually more in alignment with women.
Well, and we get called, bigoted and hateful and everything all the time. What I think is so strange about that is the people calling us that, by and large, have you ever met a trans person? Do you know any trans people? Do you know anyone with gender dysphoria? I mean, how many gay friends do you have? I mean, you're going to talk about that, you're very supporting of LGBTQ PDYA LMNOP. But do you have relationships with any of these people, or are you just advocating for an idea in your head? But in the same vein, do I don't hate anyone, but where did gender nonconformity go? I mean, don't tell me that I'm bigoted. I don't mind if a man wears a dress.
Right.
I mean, a man can wear a dress all day long. You guys are 100% going to flip out if you see a man with long earrings. And I'm going to go, okay, that's a man with long earrings. So this whole trans notion, while they call us out as if we don't accept gender nonconformity, we're the ones who allow gender nonconformity. We just don't think that it changes your sex.
Right. You're obviously talking about like the wider society, because I feel like there are very distinct, like that like saying like we're bigoted is something that's like leveraged by both groups, but obviously they're categorically totally different.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we should. We're nearing the end of our time thing, so we will have just covered this particular issue. But if we just put out a bunch more videos, if we do more on each of these other topic areas that we have.
Well, so let's do another one. I didn't get to talk about Kansas, and I'm very proud of Kansas this week. But like I mentioned the other day, if not having the government regulate personal decisions for women is this popular, maybe we should put the Staniland question on the ballot and see how that goes.
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. So I think what would be good is if we can. Are we still on the video, or?
Yeah, should we just wrap it up really quick and?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we'll come back with the other things that we have planned and other videos. We can record a lot more and start posting more frequently again. Travel schedules and other stuff have calmed down for the near future, so we will be back.
The podium, state your name and where you live for the record.
I'm Quimper Peninsula, and I'm here because I had an experience that you need to know. I have sent it to you all in detail. In an effort by the city and the YMCA to apply the neocultural gender rules at Mountain View Pool, dressing shower room facilities, women and children are being put at risk. My experience while showering after my swim was hearing a man's voice in the women's dressing area and seeing a man in a women's swimsuit watching little girls pull down their bathing suits in order to use the toilets in the dressing room. I reacted by telling him to leave, and the consequence is that I have been banned from the pool. There is no signage informing women the shower room is now all gender and what that means, nor have parents been informed of what they can expect with these new policies. The Y has not provided any dressing shower room options for women who do not want to be exposed to men who identify as women. It is unconscionable that the YMCA would instigate these new policies without clearly informing pool patrons and parents. Although in 2021, the Y reported that they were adding family and all gender dressing and bathing areas, they've not done that. Instead, they've usurped the binary designations and turned the facilities into all gender with no choices. The staff seems to have received little professional training on how to handle reactions to such a radical cultural change, particularly for the most vulnerable, older female patrons and children who may be exposed to inappropriate behavior, the dignity and safety of unsuspecting women who have trusted to use these facilities for many years. This is not right. The YMCA, the city, the police and sheriffs, the parents, the professionals who assist victims of voyeurism, peeping toms, pedophilia, and assault need to come together to figure out how to make the new policies work for all pool patrons, not just one group. How to keep children who are less able to discriminate safe. It is ironic that women who discriminate when a situation threatens their safety or their children, a message from our ancestors, are now accused of discrimination as if they have made someone else a victim. We need to do much more intelligent and wise about applying the rules and developing policies that are respectful and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we need to keep it orderly in here, please. Would anyone like to speak at this point in time?